Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar, whoever's here promptly. I think a few people just filtering in, so I'll give it a couple of minutes for people to join us. Welcome, welcome. And then we'll start presenting. See a few more people coming in now, lovely. So I'll start with a little bit of an introduction about what we're going to be talking about this evening. My name is Adam Brookbanks. I'm Managing Director of FTA Financial and Wealth Management. And this is my colleague Eponine, who's a protection advisor within the firm. And the webinar this evening is to concentrate and explain private medical insurance, a very, very hot topic for advice with our clients at the moment. And understandably why, because the NHS is under pressure. A lot of our clients, especially those who are business professionals and are earning good money and have some savings, are taking their health and their protection in their health into their own hands and paying for insurances that gives them that peace of mind. So Eponine's best place to go into details about the structures and what to look for and where you may need advice. I wanted to start before passing over to Eponine to run the webinar with a little bit of intro into our firm. For those of you who haven't dealt with us before, I'm sure lots of you here tonight have. We're the financial advisory arm of the Frank Taylor and Associates Group. As I say, I'm the managing director. I'm the independent financial advisor in the company, the holistic advisor. I deal with pensions, investments, tax planning, estate planning, all of the above. So if any of you here tonight want to speak to me separately about that type of thing, do let me know. Eponine is a protection advisor with the firm, and in terms of the services that we give on that side, it is much more diverse than just private medical insurance. We're going to keep things quite focused tonight, but lots of our clients looking at life cover, critical illness, whole of life insurance for inheritance tax planning, income protection, of course, very popular and very prevalent with dentists. And also people who are looking to review their protection if they have bought a business, they're now a limited company, or they have seen the interest rates for their loans increasing and increasing. So there's lots of ways that our firm, I'm sure, can help you. But as I say, we're going to keep things quite focused tonight and keep an eye out with the Frank Taylor promotional emails and sort of notifications on social media, because we're running lots of webinars, lots of different topics. And I'm sure lots of them will be relevant to all of your situations. So just wait for a few more people to filter in, and then I think we'll start at 5 past, Eponine, if that's okay by you.
Sounds
There's
good.
always a few people who are finishing off their dinner and their cups of tea. So in regard to before getting into private medical, other things, what do you think would be the most frequent, piece of advice that we're being asked for by clients on the protection side at the moment, aside from private medical?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's how to structure your protection so that it's efficient for your business as well. I think we've seen a real shift, definitely, especially in the dental and pharmacy markets, that actually you've gone from being sole traders and partnerships to actually being incorporated. And there's so many ways where you can diversify your protection into your business and get advantages with tax on that as well.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of shift in a lot of our clients coming to us to discuss how they can maybe change their income protection, which is personal, to executive income protection paid for by their business. I think this is something we've really noticed in the market at the moment.
It's that shift, isn't it? It's that shift of sort of legal ownership of the business, or lots of associates now working. I'm dealing with lots of clients who are associates, may not be business owners at the moment, but they are paying themselves through a limited company because it's much more tax efficient. And then maybe their insurances aren't right. So as you can hear, lots more to think about aside from just what we're covering this evening. Just before we get started, there is a Q&A box down the bottom. So as we go, if you type in questions, if you would like to, that you'd like us to answer, we will reserve sort of 10-15 minutes at the end to answer some of your questions, as many as we can, of course. If there's any we don't get to, we'll respond to you personally afterwards to help you. So without further ado, I think we've ad-libbed for long enough. We've got a fair few people joined. So I'm going to open up the presentation and pass you over to Eponine. Oh, a second. If I share my screen, that would be most helpful, wouldn't it? And then everyone can see it. So, over to Eponine.
Wonderful, thanks, Adam, and good evening, everyone. Really appreciate you all taking the time this evening to log on, and it's nice to see everyone. I know you've got quite busy schedules, but this evening, as Adam said, we're going to be talking about private medical insurance, which is a product really close to my heart, I have to say, and it's something that I've always found is maybe something that people look at a bit too late in the game. It's often once you've actually got that health condition, you've got that need for it, that you think, I wish I had my private medical insurance, but that's a stressful time. That's not the time to be arranging cover. We want to look at it beforehand. So we're going to be talking about how we can stay ahead of the game with our health and how private medical insurance can support us with that. We'll be covering maybe why we need protection and obviously the importance of having cover, looking at a few real life examples as well, and maybe more into what our health insurance can do for us, because I think whether you've never had cover before or you've had cover for a long period of time, it's not really a policy that gets used as much as it should. And it's really important to look at the other benefits available on this policy, not just the treatment that you can get privately. We'll delve into a bit about the cover as well and how obviously practically you can get the protection you need and how you can go through maybe the claims journey. Also looking at, like we said earlier, the way practices are being structured now, how we can get your business involved and pairing that alongside the family as well. I've got a few case studies as well of examples of how people have really benefited using their health insurance as well. And finally, we'll look at some of the common misconceptions about health insurance and how we can work around them, because I think there's quite a few myths out there. And I really, this evening, want to take the time to discuss with you and explain actually it can help you in more ways than most of us think. So, initially, the big topic of why our health needs protecting. I think having good health is a priceless commodity that actually none of us have a lot of control over. And it's often something we take for granted, perhaps especially when our health is good. Unfortunately, though, poor health does come to all of us at different stages. I know for me personally, the first time I would have benefited from having a private medical insurance policy was when I was about 16 years old. As a teen, I really struggled with my mental health, and after realizing that it wasn't just the stress of exams and GCSEs and things like that, it was something more than that, and it wasn't just going away on its own. I thought the best thing to do would be to see someone. So I took myself to my GP, and they'd explained that I was going to be put on a waiting list. Now, any guesses? Maybe have a think about how long I was going to have to wait before I saw someone. A young 16-year-old girl struggling with her mental health. We all know that it takes a while to get referred in this area. Maybe you're thinking 6 months, maybe 12 months. Well, in fact, I was actually told I had to wait 3 years. And I was advised to come back when I was 18 because it was a 9-month waiting list for adults. So rather than 3 years, I could cut it down to 2 years and 9 months. And that was the best option for me at the time. And to be honest, without health insurance, my parents weren't able to pay for me to see someone privately. Now, let's roll on to when I was 18. I'd actually just started working in a private medical insurance firm. I wanted to train to be a mortgage advisor, but I'd gone down the health insurance advisor route first. And within about the first 3 months of me working there, one of our clients called up. Now, they'd have cover for a number of years now, and over time, they'd added their family to that policy. They had 2 young sons. And they called me up to talk about one of their sons. He'd been experiencing quite severe low mood, and they wanted to see if they could use the health insurance policy to get him some form of cover. Now, when I spoke to them, I made sure I called up the provider. I found out what would be best for them. There's a special mental health service line that you get with most private health insurance products. And what they did was they called that line, knowing that their son could get instant access to 5 consultations with a specialist, even if this problem was pre-existing. So he actually ended up booking it for 5 days later because he had school, and that was the next best time he could get booked in. But within that time, he was seen, he got his 5 consultations and got himself a bit back on track. Now, there was me still waiting to see someone. And in fact, I actually closed it down in the end and managed to sort myself out. But it was at that moment that I realized how valuable this product would be, not only for me, but also for my future family as well. Because really, if I could have got that help within 5 days, I probably would have had a much easier time, especially going through college and things like that. So although private medical insurance, sure, it's not going to stop you from getting sick. However, it is there to guard your health. And it's really, really important that it helps us to get back on track, because without it, it might take us a long time to get the help we need on the NHS, especially with the waiting periods at the moment. But what we want to see is we want to see more people get this protection and also future proof it with the younger generations, because you can get family cover, and then as your child gets to an age of independence, they can then take out their own cover once they become what's considered an overage dependent. So it's not only looking at yourselves, but also the generations to follow and how we can stop these cycles as well. So really important to get this protection. But not only that, it's thinking about what health insurance can do for you. And I think I'd like to look at that next. We've got a few pictures on the screen here. And you might think that obviously, why in a country where we have free access to a national health service would we need private medical insurance? Well, firstly, at the moment, there are currently 7.2 million people in the UK waiting for hospital treatment. Of that, there are X amount that have been waiting for over a year. Maybe have a think about how many you think have been waiting for over a year. I know the government have been trying to bring that cap down. They've got it from 2 years to 1 year, but there's actually still 400,000 people who have been waiting over a year for in-hospital treatment. And this is why it's such a key product. But it's not only those serious major operations that private medical insurance is useful for. It also is very focused, and these are what these kind of pictures bring to mind for us. It's focused on getting healthier now in order to prevent long-term health problems. You might be thinking, okay, so how can my health insurance product do that for me? Well, one way is most products offer up to 40% off on selected gym memberships. Each provider has a different gym that they partner with, but depending on which one you prefer, whether it be Nuffield or the David Lloyd, they all have different benefits in areas where they offer those discounts. But we all know exercise, as much as maybe some of us aren't so keen on it, it can be the miracle cure. Regular exercise has been shown to scientifically prove that it reduces our risk of major illnesses. Some of the key ones being coronary heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and even cancer, and even lower the risk of early death by up to 30%. And it's also fantastic for our brains. It makes it easier for us to focus in work and things like that. So why not use your private medical insurance for something that you're actually going to benefit it? Use it to help you save a bit of money on exercising and maybe a more enjoyable gym too. I think something else that many people have really enjoyed using their policy for is general health checks. I don't know if you've ever been in the position, I sometimes get it maybe about once a year. I wonder about my general health, but I don't really have time to book in and see a GP to get a routine checkup. And I know it then means I've got to then book in separate blood tests. So I kind of just ignore it. But annual health checks are actually available right in your fingertips with private medical insurance. And most providers actually encourage you to get them. And this can be a really precious benefit because knowing more about our health helps us stay healthier for longer. Some of these can be organised virtually or maybe face to face, and some providers do this through Brewcrest, which are one of the top for their health checks and health MOTs. And the initial assessment will look at things like blood pressure, glucose level, body mass index, and your cholesterol. And after you've had this consultation, you'll then get a phone call with a trained nurse just to discuss your results. And if there are anything that could use some improvement, perhaps, they'll create a plan with you on how to get you back up to where you need to be, which obviously is quite invaluable rather than being in the position where you're not getting these regular checks, you're not really knowing what's going on inside. You maybe end up having to go to the GP when it's a bit too late and get put on long-term medication. These kind of checks make sure that actually if there's small little minor tweaks you can make them before they're too late. And I know some members, depending on their circumstances and family history, can actually get free access to a full Blue Crest MOT. And the good news is that if you don't fall within that criteria, you can still get 50% off the Blue Crest appointments. And these really go into depth about your health, your family history. They look at your heart health, your liver and kidney health, stroke risk, and other general indicators like cholesterol, diabetes, protein levels, all things like this. Priceless information that, if caught early, like I said earlier, can help you get back on the road to recovery much sooner. Another thing, and this is something I've personally used policies for in the past, is managing your lifestyle. You can get access to a number of physio appointments each year, and these can even be for pre-existing conditions. If you've had a little back niggle for a while but not got round to seeing someone, you can get these booked in virtually at any sort of time of day, get seen, have a couple of appointments each year, just to keep you going with these issues so they don't become a big problem. And I think for me, one of the biggest myths about private medical insurance that I know when I speak to any of our clients, I'm trying to get across is that they won't use the policy, but that's not true. I think without even going into any of the main cover points at this stage, you can already see how you could be using your policy to keeping you healthy, looking after your lifestyle, looking after your family, and getting all these checks done. But these are just add-ons. It's also important to consider the main areas of the cover. And there's so many different areas. I like to see it as like a colourful picture of how it can protect you. And we'll go through each of these options just very briefly. And if you've already got health insurance and you want to know a bit more, let me know and I'm happy to explain how you can use these in a claims basis. But just to run through them, you've got the core cover. So this includes the top option here, your inpatient and day patient cover. So this will allow you to have any major operations covered privately, and this includes things like knee replacements, hip replacements, and any associated post-operative therapy. And funny enough, I was looking just before we logged on this evening about how much on today's rate, how much it would cost privately to have a knee operation. And it's between about £10,000 and £17,000 where you go. Whereas this is something that's just covered in your core basic cover of your private medical insurance. And these other sort of operations, because they're not necessary, these are the ones you end up waiting more than a year for. And actually, to have that access, to have the problem sorted after maybe a couple of weeks or even a month, it can give you such a quicker road and a speedier access to the recovery that you need. Another area also included in this core cover is the cancer cover. Now, this means from the initial worry that you look at something, maybe it be a small lump or something like that, and you're a bit concerned it could be cancer, you can call your health insurance straight away. And you don't even need a GP referral first either. It means you can get on the phone, you speak to one of the cancer specialists, and then they will guide you to the best road. This can be done 24 hours a day. You can speak to someone on this regard. So even if you wake up in the middle of the night worrying, you know you can talk to someone straight away. And not only that, the comprehensive cancer cover included in private medical insurance also looks at maybe alternative therapies that are not included on the NHS if it's something your consultant recommends. So overall, it's a benefit that truly provides you with that peace of mind when needed. And we've got next looking at the outpatient cover. Now, this is cover for all your, what I would call the diagnostics areas of the policy. So this includes any consultants fees, any blood tests, x-rays, initial diagnostics, testing, investigation to help you get the firm, fast diagnosis when you need it. It means that not only are you getting that treatment, the inpatient and day patient cover, you're getting to see someone to find out what's wrong, which is often actually the most worrying time for us. And the good thing about this benefit is it can be added on in levels. So you can get it covered in full, and that's brilliant, or you can also get a monetary pot each year. So it means it can help you navigate the policy, but also keep it in budget too. And another benefit within this is the mental health cover. So we mentioned that obviously, if I had have had health insurance when I was young, I could have used it to look after my mental health and see someone. But that's an add-on to the policy. This mental health cover that you choose within the cover, this allows you a certain number of days as an inpatient for treatment in a private hospital for your mental health. So if you ever needed to go into hospital for this, if it did get serious, you wouldn't have to be worried that you're going to be on a ward with other people when you're already maybe struggling. You'd be in your own private space and you'd have that private treatment for a number of days there for you, hopefully giving you enough time to recover and come home. And this can really be a practical element of the policy. I think maybe something to look at if you're looking at family cover, definitely something to look at to covering young children, because I think it is a real prevalent in teenagers having them and mental health struggles at the moment. We've next got therapies cover on the list. Now, what therapy maybe comes to your mind when you think about this? I think often the first and only therapy people think about under this is physiotherapy, which is covered and is an excellent benefit. But not only that, it also covers things like seeing a chiropractor, an osteopath, an acupuncturist, a podiatrist, if you're young, a speech therapist, or even seeing a pain clinic. And also within this, you get 2 or 3 consultations a year with a dietitian as well. So it's not just limiting you to that physiotherapy, which is what a lot of us end up needing and using the policy for. It gives you a wide range. And I'd say that if you haven't got this benefit already added to your policy, it's not too expensive to add on, and it's definitely probably more used than most other benefits of the policy, because it gives you the option of having these maybe physio appointments, maybe osteopath appointments that we'd think, okay, I'm happy to pay, £100 each week to go to, but you don't need to. You can get that covered on your health insurance. And if you want to discuss any of these options, like I said before, I'm happy to go through them and go into them in a bit more depth, because making sure your policy is user friendly is really a key thing for me, because you want to have something you're paying and you're using at the same time. And another thing to think about, whether you've already got cover or you're thinking about getting it, is how perhaps you can select your plan so it suits you, your family, and your business. It's not just a one-man policy. You can get policies specially made for married couples, for families, and for businesses, and also for employees. So let's say, for example, you're an owner of a limited company and you want to get some cover. You'd like to get your family cover hypothetically under your limited company. You could create one policy under that company that protects you as the main member. You don't need to have your partner or your children as either company directors or employed by the company. They come under you as the main member. And then that allows you to benefit for having the business pay for a policy that you need personally. But not only that, maybe have a think about your key employees in the dentist in your business, your main dentists, your main pharmacists. What happens to them if they're off sick for a long time? You've then perhaps got to pay to get someone in to replace them. It ends up being quite costly having an agency. Perhaps having access for them to get speedy access to health cover could prevent you needing that. And I think it's interesting when you look at some of the main reasons that people are off work sick. So Apart from minor illnesses like coughs and colds, the flu, that kind of thing, I wonder what you think the next biggest reason people are off work sick are. It's actually surprisingly stress. And with business private medical insurance, all members get access to what's called a talking therapies benefit. So this means access to counselling and cognitive behavioural therapies. So what this means for you as an employer is that perhaps your employees make contact with someone before things are getting too bad, before they're thinking they're going to need to take time off work. They have the opportunity to speak through it with people, and then actually they don't need to take any leave for stress, or if they do, it's only a short period. And we're more than happy, and so are the providers, if you do decide to get a policy for your employees, to come in and give the presentation to the business. This can be done in person, or I know we're all busy and sometimes the evenings are best as well. This can be done on a Zoom conference where we can discuss the ins and outs of how the employees can make the most of a policy. Because if you as a business owner are deciding to give this benefit out, you want to make sure that your employees are using what you're paying for. But saying that, if you're a sole trader, if you're in a partnership, you can definitely get cover personally for you and your family. And quite often it can give you that continuity of cover and peace of mind as well, because you're not worrying, what if the business ceases trading? What if I'm in the middle of a claim? You've got that continuity because it's always owned and personally paid by you. So we're happy to meet with any of you to discuss obviously what's right for you in the circumstances, whether it be to put for your business or whether to have it personally. And if you've got cover already, it might be worth having a switch around depending on your circumstances. But it's definitely right. It's definitely worth making the time to get the right cover for you. And for me now, the next slide kind of really hits home why it's such an important product. And this is looking at some case studies of real life examples of two women who have used their private health insurance. We've got Anna, who's actually the bottom picture, and then we've got Louise, who's at the top picture. So we'll look first at Anna. So she started feeling sick. Now, what's the first thing you might do when you start feeling sick or having symptoms? For me, I have quite a bad habit. I go straight to Google and I put all my symptoms in, and quite often I end up worrying myself that actually I've got this horrific disease when probably I don't. I probably just have a bit of a cold. But saying that, it's quite often what we do, and it's what Anna did as well. She started experiencing a few symptoms and she searched Google with them. And the first time she investigated these, she ended up noticing that the results were suggesting breast cancer. Now, as soon as that started flagging up, she knew she needed to get in contact with someone. She tried to call her local GP surgery. However, there was quite a long wait for appointments. And rather than wait to see her GP, she actually used her health insurance instead to call one of the direct access teams right away. And that was the all important first call that Anna made. As we all know, breast cancers found early need less treatment and are more likely in most instances to be cured. And that's why it's so important to act quickly. So Anna was able to call up her health insurance, have her symptoms assessed over the phone using national clinical guidance. And due to the nature of her symptoms and what she was describing, an appointment with a consultant was booked there and then. So she'd been given clear advice what to do in the meantime, and within 5 days, she was speaking to a consultant and a specialist in this field. And this really eased her worry at this time, because I think when we all hear the word cancer, a bit of us, it gives a bit of a sting inside where we start getting concerned. So she was able to get seen. She went to see that consultant within those 5 days. She had a mammogram, an ultrasound, and a biopsy all in that day under the same roof. And that was when Anna was first diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. Now, getting answers sooner rather than later meant that she could move forward and focus on dealing with this diagnosis. And you'll be pleased to hear that within 4 weeks, she was at home recovering from her surgery with her husband and her dog. Now, I think everyone's experience with cancer is different, whether it's something we've experienced personally or something we've seen in our family, but you just don't know how you're going to cope with it. And I think that's how Anna felt, that sometimes she didn't want to talk to people, especially maybe not her family. But with her health insurance, she always had an oncology nurse she could call up any time of day. And I think knowing that there was someone at the other end of the phone who had that no judgmental attitude towards her really gave her the peace of mind. And she said quite often they'd just end up having a chat and a laugh over the phone, which is all that she needed at that time. But from that initial moment to then 4 weeks being at home, having had the surgery, she was able to relax. Now, interestingly enough, currently on the NHS, how long do you think it might take for an urgent referral from when they get urgently referred for a patient to initially get told they have cancer? Interestingly enough, it's 28 days. This is the same period of time Anna was then back at home recovering from her surgery. So even though we know the NHS offer fantastic treatment for cancer, and there are so many trusts and hospices available in these circumstances, this really shows that actually you can also use your health insurance too, and it might give you a bit more peace of mind of getting that seen just a bit quicker. But moving on to Louise now, I think Louise is an interesting case, and I'm going to give you a bit of background first. So currently, there are around about 7.4 million people in the UK living with heart and circulatory diseases, and around about 44,000 people each year under the age of 75 die from such conditions. So we all know that if there's a problem with our heart or our circulation, it's worth getting seen quickly. So Louise, as you can see, she's got her gym gear on, she's outside, she's a fit and active mum. She loves riding her bike, and it was actually while riding her bike that she first noticed her heart rate rush, and it spiraled up and down. And after this, she did actually briefly lose consciousness. And this all happened at the peak of coronavirus. So finding a GP, finding a consultant, even though it was deemed quite a serious thing, she was told she had a 3-month wait. And because she had her private medical insurance, it was at this time that she decided she'd actually rather not wait. Mainly this was because she was told within those 3 months, until she saw someone, she was to do no exercise. Now, she's a very active person. She's got a 4-year-old son. She just felt that her life couldn't stop like that. So she called her health insurance, and the first step that she took was to arrange an initial video consultation. Now, it may be that if this had have happened now, it would have been something that was perhaps face to face, but this was over the pandemic. So they arranged that initial video consultation, and she was able to speak with a cardiac specialist right away. And she said at the time it was actually so nice to be within her home. It felt relaxed. She knew what it was like in hospital. It was a very stressful situation at that time, whereas she was able to sit back on her sofa and talk to someone. She said it was a bit different to what she was used to, but it felt really good. And what she was told when she was speaking to that cardiac specialist was that she would have to wear an ECG at home, and this was 24/7. It was sent to her the very next day, and she received straightforward instructions about how to use it, but she also received a call and had an email line that she could contact if she needed any support. On the same day, she then had a later consultation once she'd received this and started wearing it about 5:30 p.m. with a consultant, and it was at this point that it seemed that she needed to be referred for an ultrasound, just to make sure. It turns out that actually the consultant said the results were fine. She was in and out of the hospital in less than 2 hours. And by monitoring her heart remotely, the health insurance provider was able to see her heart in real life situations and scenarios, not just in the tests that they do within the hospital. And by having this done remotely but safely because of the pandemic, it was all dealt with very efficiently. And although she still had a few more tests to go, her mind was put at ease that just from these few monitorings and investigations that she didn't actually have anything to worry about. And it did end up that she came out, she didn't have anything wrong and she was going to be okay. But as you can see, probably in this situation, especially during the pandemic, to have that peace of mind that she'd been seen, whatever it was, maybe she'd overexerted herself cycling, but although she didn't need that diagnosis, she didn't need any further treatment. She got seen quickly and she did not have to stop her active lifestyle either. So I think these two really hit home because when I've spoken to people over the years that I've been selling health insurance, they say, I'll use it for a knee operation, I'll use it for a hip operation, but if I ever get a problem with my heart, if I ever get cancer, it's fine, I'll go with the NHS. But actually, it may be that your health insurance gives you just that little bit extra and can get you seen that little bit quicker. And it might be that you decide, actually, I do want to use my policy for things like that. So it's worth keeping in mind because, as I said, and the main message from me is using this cover. But often, I think a lot of people, when they think of PMI, they maybe think of the common misconceptions. And I want to discuss today about how we can work around them and maybe have a think. I don't know if anything comes to your mind at all, maybe why people don't decide to get PMI. Firstly, I would say, and this is from speaking to a lot of people deem it to be a luxury product. And although, yes, in the UK, we do have access to the NHS, protecting our health should not be deemed as a luxury, especially with private medical insurance being one of the most usable insurance policies. I think that's the thing. We really want to make sure that you're in the position where you're using the cover you have. With life cover, you really hope you never have to use it. You get it as peace of mind, but it's not cover we want to talk about using. The same with critical illnesses. When you think of the word critical illnesses, these are serious changing illnesses that we don't really ever want to have, but we get the insurance in place to protect us if something does happen. Whereas private medical insurance, that can help us see a physio, an acupuncturist. It can help us check the lump on our foot that we've been worried about a little while. It doesn't have to be these serious things. It's the small things that can give us peace of mind and also keep us working, keep us happy, keep us healthy. I think perhaps maybe the second and most common misconception, though, is also about pre-existing conditions. A lot of people choose not to take out private medical insurance because it won't cover them for pre-existing conditions. But I think that's really sad because actually, if we discuss, and what we'll discuss this evening, which is the purpose of private medical insurance, this being that it's designed to cover acute conditions rather than chronic conditions, this will really help us understand actually, although it doesn't cover pre-existing conditions, it's maybe not in the way we think. But if you think about most kind of insurances, they're designed to cover unexpected costs. So, for example, when I used to be a mortgage advisor, I also used to sell home insurance. Now, when you take out home insurance, you're not expecting to have a break-in. And there's no way of you knowing, maybe perhaps unless you got one of the Ring doorbells, that you're going to have a break-in. And this is why you get the home insurance. It's to cover the unexpected costs. It's not because over time your paint's going to start looking a bit shabby. You're going to have a few chips in your woodwork. It's not for those general maintenance side of things. That's for you as a homeowner to look after. And health insurance is just the same. It's not designed to cover you for illnesses or health problems that are predictable, such as chronic conditions. And when we refer to chronic conditions, we mean a condition that comes back, reoccurs, or is likely that it's not going to massively impact you. Maybe you need to take some long-term medication. Whereas an acute condition is a disease or illness that will respond quickly to treatment and aims to get you back to the state that you were before you got that condition. So, like going back to the home insurance, they'll pay out a lump sum to get your home back to where it was before you had that break in. It's the same with the health insurance. The providers want to get you back to a state of good health, and your plan is designed to cover acute conditions. And this can also at times include short-term treatment for flare-ups of chronic conditions. And that is maybe includes unexpected complications or maybe the worsening of a chronic condition. An example of this, we're going to look at a real life example, and it's of a lady named Deirdre. Deirdre's actually got diabetes and she's had health insurance for 2 years. Now, when she started developing symptoms that indicated she may have diabetes, she went to her GP, and her GP referred her to a specialist who organised a series of investigations to confirm the diagnosis. And she then started on oral medication to control the diabetes. After several months of regular consultations and some adjustments to her medication regime, the specialist confirmed that the condition is now considered well controlled, and that he'd like for her to see her GP every 4 months to review this condition. Now, you may be thinking, diabetes is a chronic condition. Will Deirdre be covered? So she wouldn't be covered for the continuation of the review consultations with her GP, but she would be covered for one more consultation that would give her the option to discuss alternative arrangements for a follow-up. And she'd also have all those pre-diagnostics tests covered. However, that annual monitoring, now they've got it to a point where it is well controlled, that's now with her GP. Let's roll on to a year later. Her diabetes starts becoming unstable, and her GP arranges for her to go to hospital for treatment. What about now? She's been under review with the GP, she has to go to hospital. Do you think she would be covered? Yeah, she would be covered for the cost of the hospital stay, and for a short period of time after that stay, any treatment she needed. So it's not about the bits that we aren't covered for, You're never going to need to see a specialist or go into hospital for well-controlled diabetes. That's always going to be something that's under your GP. But at the point it gets to a level where your GP can't look after you anymore and you need blood tests, you need further investigations, you need to stay overnight in hospital, that's when your health insurance can come back to covering you. So it's not a no forever. And I think it's really important, if you're someone who maybe has a chronic condition, give us a call and I can chat through exactly what areas would and wouldn't be covered under that chronic condition. All the providers have a long list and exactly how they can care for you. But you may be asking yourself, what if Deirdre already had diabetes when she started the plan? Well, at this point, it would probably be worth reviewing her underwriting options to see if she could get cover now that this is pre-existing condition for any acute flare-ups. And there's quite a few different underwriting options. And recently, we've had actually a client of ours. Now, they also have diabetes, and we've got them to complete a questionnaire about their diabetes, and because it is deemed as that well controlled, they're able to get new health insurance and not have any exclusions on the policy, have that diabetes covered. So maybe if it's something that you have got pre-existing, don't think that you're out of help, get in contact, because it may be, depending on the severity of what's going on, there are options for you of getting these chronic conditions in cover. So To go back over the main points, really, why our health needs protecting. Like Adam said, even in our introduction, the NHS is at its worst state it's been, and there are so many people on a waiting list. So, not only do you need protection for you and your family, maybe for your business, you need to make sure that if you do get sick, you get better as soon as possible. And not only that, we also looked at options of how health insurance can help us without needing any serious operations. We mentioned the gym membership discount, we mentioned the annual health checks, we mentioned the access to physio appointments for pre existing conditions, mental health appointments for pre existing conditions, and even like doctor at hand. So, most providers come with online GPs you can contact 24 hours a day. So it's not just the big areas you can get covered, your inpatient cover, your cancer cover, your outpatient cover. You've got all these little things that your policy can help you with. And we also looked at obviously maybe involving your business. And I strongly recommend that if this isn't something you're doing already, it's something you come to us and you have a discussion about, because it is that preventative policy. We want you to stay as healthy for as long as possible. And likely you probably want the people who are key in your business to stay as healthy as long as possible. So do get in contact with us. And we obviously had the example of Anna and Louise and Deirdre and how they've used their health insurance. Now, there are so many other case studies, and if you do want to learn more about them, I can send you some links to some websites that the providers have issued these stories so that you can get access to how people are using their policies. And I hope also towards the end of this, I've explained some of the common misconceptions, because it does make me sad, like I said, when I see people not taking out PMI just because maybe they haven't been explained it properly. So, in summary, really, private medical insurance is a product that we can all use regularly to help support us, our families, our businesses to get a healthier tomorrow. And whether you don't currently have cover or want to explore the options that most appeal to you with our tailor made policies, or perhaps you already do have cover but want to check that your cover is giving you everything you need, please get in touch after this webinar for a chat. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But in the meantime, I hope that this has provided you with, some of the information that can really help you understand this product, but also stay ahead of your game when it comes to health insurance. So I really appreciate your time, and I will close down the screen and hopefully we can look at any questions there might be this evening.
We will do. Thank you so much, Eponine. Really great presentation and really powerful because, as you pointed out, so many ways that this insurance can be used. One of the few insurances you actually want to use, can use without it being, in a terrible position. So, guys, the contact details for Eponine for myself are listed on the screen. We're going to answer some questions in a moment. Any consultation with us about any advice is free and no obligation. So, Eponine, as she said, happy to speak to any of you. Please get in contact via email or call the office to arrange an initial phone or Zoom meeting consultation with Eponine about private medical, any other insurance advice, with myself, or any other financial planning advice. So, what I'll do is I'll close down the screen share so everyone can see us again. So let's look through. We've got a few questions here. This question is, I'm interested in further information about getting cover. So Eponine, what's best for this person to do?
I definitely think probably having a one-on-one, whether it be a phone call or a Zoom consultation, because like you've probably gathered over the course of this webinar, there's so many different areas of cover. And we want to make sure the policies are tailor-made so they give you what you need out of the cover. So perhaps if you want to contact us, you've seen the contact details on screen, pop us an email and we can book in a time where we can discuss this further together.
Yeah, perfect. I've got another one here, which is, can I review my private medical insurance at any time?
So if you've already got health insurance, there's nothing stopping you reviewing it at any time. It may be that if you pay for the policy annually, I'll probably advise you that we wait till renewal, only because you've paid up for that year. However, if you pay for it by monthly direct debit, you can change your policy mid-term. So please feel free to contact me, whether it be to get your annual review booked in or whether to look at reviewing it now as what's best.
And also to start planning. You like,
Yeah.
with anything I'm doing, with anything Eponine does, it, some situations are quite clear, and you look and you say, right, this is the situation, this is the market available, this switch would be really neat. Sometimes it's slightly less neat and tidy. Sometimes it needs time to mull over with a client. The options, and if there's any pre-existing conditions and other features they want and family added. So the sooner you get in touch, the sooner you start looking, the sooner you can make a plan, even if it is gearing up for an annual renewal. Yeah,
exactly.
Another question here. I already have cover. Is it possible for me to switch my cover safely?
So this is something that is always really important. We never want to move you away from your current cover if it wasn't safe to do so. However, we find that most clients who've got existing health insurance can move to another provider safely, providing you've not got any ongoing claims. However, even saying that, if you've got a number of family members covered and only one of you is claiming, but your policy keeps creeping up in price, it might be that you're able to keep that family member covered, but then switch the rest of you safely. There's always options. So I think even if you're a bit hesitant about moving, I know a lot of people have their cover for 10, 15 years with the same provider, do get in touch because we'll always make sure if a move is going to happen that it's safe for you.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephanie. Another question here is, do I have to have an excess on my policy?
That's an interesting one because I think with a lot of insurances, there are compulsory excesses. I know on my car insurance, I've got a compulsory excess, but with private medical insurance, it's absolutely your choice. You're able to bring the price down a bit by having an excess, but also a lot of people choose to have no excess because when you've got that health problem, you don't want to be worrying about forking out 100, 250, 500 pounds.
Might put you off.
Yeah, you want to use the policy, but
Yeah.
again, that's something we can speak to you about individually, obviously, in your
I
circumstances.
suppose a parody and an example with other insurances, which a lot of people may be watching who don't have PMI will probably have, is income protection. If you remember when you got your income protection, the bells and whistles, day one cover for 60% of your income. I guarantee none of you did that when you were in your 20s, and a lot of you tonight may still have the same policy that was set up in the 20s. You've got options to bring in the cover for income protection after a deferment period, or be only paid out for a certain period of time rather than for life. But look, we've seen clients claiming on income protection for life, getting paid 50 grand, 100 grand a year tax free for life because they've got like a degenerative hand condition, all this sort of thing. Now, I know we're talking about a different cover, but it's really about adapting the policy to make it right for you. And if you already have cover at the moment, which you don't feel is exactly right, there's so many options, so much flexibility, isn't there, to make these covers tailored and bespoke. And it really should be. It's very personal policy, isn't it?
Private medical. Definitely.
Good. Another question here. We've got time for another couple more before 8, I think. Will I know exactly what is and isn't covered when I start my policy?
So that's quite an interesting question, actually, because I think there are, again, maybe a misconception with private medical insurance. If you speak to one of the really large telesales corporate brokers, they will only put you on what's called a moratorium underwriting. Now, this means that in some cases it can be really advantageous because they only look at your last 5 years' medical history. But if you've got any conditions in the last 5 years, there's kind of ambiguity of whether you're going to get them back on cover or not. It can suit some people, but not the others. But there's also a full medical disclosure. Now, this is when you end up being on the phone to me for a little bit longer, but we run through a full application. And before getting your policy started, you know exactly what conditions are and aren't covered for. And I think that gives you that peace of mind, really, that actually okay, I'm not going to use the policy for this, but I'm okay with that because everything else in my medical history is covered.
It was really poignant, that part of your presentation, and I have it with my clients, because we deal with a lot of insurance in the business, as you can imagine, with a number of business professionals, and we need specialists like Eponine dealing with that's focus. But having dealt with this type of thing in the past, that's, like you say, the biggest thing that people say, well, I've got this, so I can't get it. But this is so important to get right. And every insurer is different. I'm sure you'll explain to people when you speak. Every insurer has a different stance. So just because you've looked at it with one insurer, there's a whole market out there, and there'll always be ones that are better for certain scenarios. So really interesting. Another question here, Eponine, is do you need to have a medical screening every time before you get covered?
No, so if any of you have ever done any life insurance, critical illness cover, maybe even income protection with us, you often end up having to have what's called a nurse's screening. This is not the case with private medical insurance. It's all done on either a paper or an online application. And because you look at that full medical history, there isn't the need. They don't need proof from your doctor. All that happens is at the point of claim, if they need to get a letter from your doctor, they'll get your medical history at that point of claim.
It's just so much easier, isn't it, in a way, actually applying. If things are reasonably straightforward, then for a lot of insurances, good. Well, everyone's busy here, so I'm sure that's music to ears. So the last question here left for us is, how would the policy premiums be paid by my business?
So it's something that you'd pay for as an employer, and this can be done through a business bank account. Now, the employee covered by this insurance, so you need to be employed in order to have this cover. So even as a company director, you'd need to be employed. And the employee would pay a P11D benefit. However, this would be separate to what you were paying. So the premium I would be giving you would be what you'd be paying as the business, that would come out of the business account. It might be worth chatting to your accountant as well if you do decide to put it through the business on exactly the tax implications here. But then the employee would on top pay a P11D benefit on this.
Yeah, so there's the various tax reliefs, but there's also extra taxes, and I do a lot of this planning for my clients. So it's always worth running past your accountant. But remember what Eponine said, you can pay for private medical personally. Like with pension contributions, you have to look at both options. As soon as you've got a limited company, you need to look at what can my limited company pay for. And sometimes it can pay for nearly everything, but sometimes just slight nuances to the tax treatment might mean it's better to pay personally. And I think you mentioned in your presentation about family planning, and a lot of people that I deal with, and I'm sure people here tonight, they run a business with their family members included. And remember, if you've got teenage children, you can probably add them to the books, and you can include them, in this type of way. It might be for other things and getting some money to them tax efficiently, and that's that sort of planning. But certainly PMI comes into it. A lot of our clients are limited, are family business. This business here is a family business. I run this business with my mother Sue, who a lot of you will have dealt with on protection or will writing. So it's just really useful, PMI to be dealt with that way. But as Eponine says, if you're going to plan to pay for anything by your business, there's a trade-off. For some people, it works out really, really well. Other people, it might work out better personally. So let us have a look at that for you. Good. So wonderful. There's no other questions. If anybody has any other questions that they think of who's attending or watching on YouTube after the event, please get hold of us. We'd be happy, as I say, to have an initial chat, Eponine, myself, whoever in the team, to help you and make sure that your questions are fully answered. So I think that's about covered everything.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you all for your time this evening. Really appreciate it. And just get in touch. I'm happy to discuss anything with any of you.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll speak to you very soon. Have a nice evening.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.